You did everything right. You were tired all day. You finally turned off the lights, pulled the blanket up, and closed your eyes. And the second your head hit the pillow, your brain woke all the way up. Suddenly, you're replaying a conversation from 3 years ago. You're planning a phone call you have to make in 9 hours. You're wondering if you locked the door, and then wondering why you can't stop wondering. You were exhausted a minute ago. Now you're wide awake and somehow exhausted at the same time. It feels personal, like your own mind waited until you were most defenseless and then chose violence. But the real reason your brain does this is far stranger than stress. There's a strange, almost too simple technique that actually helps. And there's a deeper reason most people stay stuck, night after night, one that almost nobody talks about, and it's got nothing to do with technique at all. We'll get to both. First, you've got to understand what your brain is actually doing. Here's the first thing to know. Your racing mind at night isn't a sign that something's wrong with you. It's a sign that something's working exactly as it was built to. During the day, your attention points outward. You're answering messages, driving, listening to people, reacting to the world. But when the room finally goes dark, something changes. Your brain has a network that switches on when nothing outside needs your attention. Researchers call it the default mode network. It's involved in remembering, imagining, replaying, rehearsing. In a sense, it's the part of your mind that thinks about your life. So when the distractions disappear, that system finally gets the microphone. Which means the racing isn't a flood of new thoughts arriving. It is the backlog. Everything your mind didn't have room to process while you were busy comes due the moment you stop feeding it distraction. Your brain isn't ambushing you. It's finally getting a chance to do its filing, and you happen to be lying in the same room while it works. But that raises a harder question. Why does it feel so urgent? Why does a small worry at noon turn into a catastrophe at 1 in the morning? When you're exhausted, something strange happens. The thoughtful part of your brain, the part that keeps things in proportion, gets worse at its job. But the emotional systems don't necessarily quiet down with it. So, at 1 in the morning, you're trying to evaluate tomorrow's meeting with a brain that's great at spotting danger and terrible at estimating probability. The same thought that felt manageable in daylight shows up at night with nothing left to balance it. This is also why the content of 2 a.m. thoughts is so reliably dark. It isn't that nighttime reveals some hidden truth about your life. It's that nighttime removes the editor. The part of you that would normally say, "That's not as bad as it feels," has clocked out for the night. Now, here's where it gets genuinely counterintuitive. Because lying there, most people reach for the one move that makes the whole thing worse. They try to force it to stop. You tell yourself, "Don't think about it. Just sleep. Clear your mind." And for a few seconds, it seems to work. Then the thought comes back, louder than before. There's a famous experiment behind this, and once you know it, you'll never unsee it in yourself. The psychologist Daniel Wegner sat people down and gave them a strange instruction. Don't think about a white bear. Whatever you do, keep a white bear out of your mind. You can already guess what happened. People could think of almost nothing else. Wegner called it ironic process theory. When you try to suppress a thought, part of your mind has to keep checking whether the thought's gone yet, and to check, it has to keep the thought switched on. The very act of pushing it away is what holds it in place. So, at 2 a.m., every time you order your brain to be quiet, you're quietly reminding it of the exact thing you wanted to forget. The harder you try to sleep, the more awake you become. Effort is the trap. Trying is the noise. So, if forcing it doesn't work, here's the technique I promised you. The answer isn't to fight the network. It's to give it something else to chew on. Your mind at night wants to run pictures and words on a loop. So instead of trying to shut the loop off, which you can't do, you hand it a gentler loop instead. A cognitive scientist named Luc Baudouin built a small technique around exactly this. It's sometimes called the cognitive shuffle, and it sounds almost too simple to matter. That's the point. You pick an ordinary, neutral word with no emotional weight. Let's use the word table. Then, slowly, you think of a random object for each letter, and you picture each one for a moment. T, a turtle. See it. A, an apple, see it. B, a balloon, a boat, a bicycle. The images have to be unrelated, plain, and a little bit pointless. That's important. Your brain is trying to build a story. The whole point of the exercise is to hand it material that refuses to become one. Here's why a deliberately pointless exercise works when nothing else will. The reason your brain keeps you awake is that it's running a story, a thread it can follow and tug on and worry. A worry is a narrative. It's got a beginning and a terrible imagined ending. By feeding your mind a disconnected string of harmless, random images, you snap the thread. There's nothing to chase, nothing to solve. And a mind with no story to pursue starts to drift. And drifting is the doorway to sleep. You're not silencing your brain, you're gently boring it to sleep, on purpose. So now you've got a real tool. And if you're like most people, a quiet voice is already saying, "That's nice, but I'll never remember to do any of that at 2 a.m. when I'm spiraling." Hold on to that voice, because it just said the deeper thing I promised you, the one almost nobody talks about. Knowing a technique and being able to reach it in the moment you actually need it are two completely different skills. At 2 a.m., flooded, with your thoughtful brain dimmed and your alarm system blaring, you don't have calm access to the sensible plan you made in daylight. The information is in there. You simply can't retrieve it in the state you're in. The worst possible moment to go looking for the exit is when the room is already full of smoke. Most people think they need better sleep advice. Often they don't. They already know what helps. The problem is that at 1 in the morning, they can't reach what they know. The gap was never between you and the right answer. The gap was between the calm version of you who knows the answer and the overwhelmed version of you who needs it. So build the path in daylight. Practice it when it's easy. Then, the next time your head hits the pillow and your mind starts to race, you won't be failing at sleep. Your brain will be doing exactly what brains do. And the overwhelmed version of you, reaching for a way out in the dark, won't have to figure it out. The answer will already know how to find it.